gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 3, 2, 1, go.
Good morning, CaneSport. It's January the 9th, 2023. I'm Gary Ferman, the publisher of CaneSport.com, joined once again by our managing editor, Matt Shodell, as we discuss the news of the day, presented as always by Life Wallet, where the time is now to take charge of your personal health. Matt, I'm trying to take charge of my personal health, get rid of this damn cold. I'm getting closer. It's better than it was last week. Probably still sound a little congested, so I apologize to everybody, but way too much to talk about this morning. Way too much that I know has me fired up to take the morning off and make Matt do the show by himself. So we're here, and it's time to talk about the news of the day, and I think we got to start, Matt, with the transfer commitment of UCF center Matt Lee, and we hyped it up a little bit last week. I talked about how important I felt that it was, and Miami got it done. I mean, he went to Oklahoma, had a good visit to Oklahoma. This was one that Miami was not going to let fail. Okay, this was one they were all in on. So there's a lot of things for us to talk about here on this one, but let's start with why was landing Matt Lee so important to the Miami football program. And Matt, I think it starts with Jakai Clark. And Jakai, God bless him, he came in undersized. He's played a lot of football for Miami. He's taken a physical pounding, quite honest, and in his defense. But here he is now, starting to get towards the later stages of his career, and he is not what I would call a frontline center in college football. And Miami needs to get better. They need to get better everywhere. Offensive line is certainly one place. They've done a good job of recruiting that position. And this is the final piece, a center. Your thoughts on his transfer?
I mean, the same as what I talked about last week. I don't get as excited about every single player Miami adds. I sort of look at it through, or I try to look at it sort of more objectively. This is a guy who 3 years ago chose UCF over USF, wasn't a top recruit, has done really well at UCF. There's no doubt about it. He's done really well. So obviously I'm not an offensive line coach, so I look at it a little differently. Look, Miami did take guys already, John Dennis, Logan Sagapolu. It's not like they're infallible, right? So I'm not going to say everybody they take is always going to be amazing. I'm just going to tell you what I see. What I see is I look at the grades for this particular player. It appears and I've heard from some people also about him. So the good thing with him, extremely hard worker, really smart, which is what you want in the middle of your line. What he's not apparently is a dominant run blocking guy, really good technique. He's just not that big and strong where he's just going to overpower people, but a really good pass blocker. And hearing that, I went to his pro football grades and they sort of back that up also. They don't play a great schedule, obviously, at UCF. You got teams like Navy and USF, Duke, Temple. Georgia Tech's not real good. FAU, South Carolina State. Not the greatest teams in the world. Some of them are decent. And the teams that are decent, for instance, Georgia Tech's not even that decent. Well, against Georgia Tech, he graded out. He played every snap. Graded out at 69.2 and pass blocking, 66.2 run blocking. 70 is considered good. So Cincinnati, decent team, 84.8 pass blocking, fantastic, but 52.2 run blocking. He was just not able to hold up at the point of attack when they needed to run the ball and get push. Against Navy, 50.9 as a run blocker. The only run blocking grades he had that were above 70 this year, he had 2 really good grades, and that was against Tulane and against USF, okay, as a run blocker. And then he had 2 decent grades of 72 against East Carolina and 72 against Duke. And his other grades were all subpar if 70 is considered good. I mentioned there was 2 in the 50s, the rest were in the 60s. So he's okay. Jakai Clark, and this is, Jakai Clark obviously played a higher level of competition. And I'll call up Jakai Clark's grades in a minute, just so you can compare apples to apples, so to speak. But his pass blocking grades are stellar. Pass blocking, he was above 80 in every single game, except for 4, and they played 15 games. Stellar pass blocking, really good in that aspect. Now, the question mark's going to be, well, does Josh Gaddis still want to run the ball half the time? It was 50-50 this year. Does Mario Cristobal want a power blocking offensive line? Are they unwilling to realize that maybe this isn't still not going to be a dominant physical offensive line? Because let's face it, if you're going to start maybe a Samson Okunlola at one of the guard spots, I think Javion Cohen is certainly physical enough. But, if you're going to start a freshman at one spot at guard, start another freshman, Maui Goa at left tackle, those guys aren't going to be as physically capable and as aware of what they need to do as they will be when they're older. So the question is this next year just magically with 4 new starters, maybe the 5th being Jalen Rivers, who's a returner, or maybe Zion Nelson still starts at right tackle, whatever. Maybe there's 1 or 2 guys, and Zion didn't play last year. So maybe one guy from last year's line that's back. That's great. But is this really going to be a line that's dominant all of a sudden? Like, I'm not ready to proclaim that to the Hurricanes Nation yet. You guys know me. I try to keep it sort of real. It won't be worse. It'll be better. But will it be dominant? I don't think so yet. But I think in 2 years, when the 2 5-star true freshmen have a full year under their belt, when Matt Lee's had a year in this system to sort of understand everything, had another year in the weight room, I think he'll be really good in 2 years. I think in 2 years, this offensive line will be dominant. I just don't think it'll be the case this year. I think it'll be decent this year, better than last year. So anyways, now let's move on, not to bore people, but Jakai Clark's grades, right, against a much better schedule, right? So his run blocking grades, he had 1, 2, 3 run blocking grades in the 60s, and the rest of them were in the 50s all year. So really not good at run blocking. Pass blocking, he was in the 60s for every game except for 79 against North Carolina, which was by far his best game. And then he was below 60 in 5 games out of the 13. So, his grades were substantially worse than Matt Lee. But again,
different competition.
It's FSU, it's Clemson, it's Pittsburgh.
Right. No, that's fair.
So it's hard to tell. Like, I can't sit here and tell you Matt Lee's going to be great, like everyone wants everyone to say, just because he committed to Miami and because he got a big NIL deal and because Oklahoma won. I'm like, I can't sit here and say that just knowing what I know. He's going to be better than Jakai Clark. Yes, I do think he will be. Is he going to be a world beater, amazing physical center, the best center they've had? I think he's going to be sort of like a Corey Gaynor this year, and then better than Corey Gaynor, hopefully, the year after. Like, that's just how I feel right now.
Well, you make some good points in that. Like, we don't know what the starting lineup is going to look like. I mean, we just don't. I mean, we could sit here and predict different things, but when you're talking about true freshmen, you don't really know how they're going to show up, through spring, through fall, through summer, and be ready to play in September. Some can do it. It's very difficult to do. You have to be really, really good. But Matt Lee's played a lot of college football.
Oh, yeah.
And
1,000 reps last year. 1,000 reps. Think about that.
Exactly.
I don't do 1,000 of anything.
Yeah. And that's a great stat to throw out. This guy's played a lot of college football. He knows what he's doing on the field. And judging by the zealor that Miami displayed in recruiting him.
Are you just creating new words now on the show?
Should I just said zeal? I don't know, man. I'm telling you, I am struggling, okay? I have had this cold that has just absolutely floored me, and I'm sure my brain is not totally back to functioning properly yet. So I'll say the zeal, that's correct for sure, of which Miami has been recruiting him. And that included having Tyler Van Dyke fly back to town early to host him. And they were all in on landing Matt Lee. And they wouldn't have been if they didn't think they had a need there. And at worst, that need was you can't put an entire season on Jakai Clark. He can't hold up physically. That's been proven in multiple seasons now. It is asking too much. He started out his career as a significantly undersized college offensive lineman. And you can't expect him to play 1,000 snaps, for example, the way a bigger, stronger Matt Lee can. So at worst, they could share playing time, and that will make the Miami offensive line better. But I don't think they went through all this, Matt, thinking that Matt Lee is not going to be the starter on day one when the season begins in September.
Matt Lee's the starter. Javion Cohen's the starter. That's for sure. They'd have to come in and just fall on their faces. But then again, we've seen this staff do this before, right? A Caleb Johnson was a proven commodity from a major college program out west who was going to replace a smaller, not physical enough middle linebacker, and it didn't happen.
This is why people love you, man. You're right.
No, so I mean,
but you're right.
Like everyone wants to say the coaches are paid, $1 million. Gary Ferman only pays me $999,000. So I don't know as much as those guys. I'm talking about cents, obviously.
But in this case, you're really right.
Oh, okay. So then I'll stop talking. That's it. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a great day.
No, the opposite, because your fan club right now, is euphoric. They are honking horns.
Oh, you want to hear about my fan club? Right now. Last night, I go to this crazy restaurant. It's called Bois d'A, which I think stands for small portions you have to pay a lot of money for that don't fill you up. I'm pretty sure that's what it means. Fantastic restaurant. I mean, one of the best restaurants I've ever been to. Michelin starred, amazing. And there's these two people sitting next to us.
Wadek.
Bois d'A. I think they pronounce it Bois d'A, actually. I pronounce it Bois d'A because to me,
spell it so everybody knows to look it up.
You want me to look up Bois d'A for you? I
want to know how you spell it.
Oh, it's Boia.
Okay, Boia.
Space DE. It's in this little strip mall that you'd think there's nothing. It's next to a laundromat. Like you just think it's just like in some regular neighborhood. Why would there be this amazing Michelin restaurant there? It's amazing. Amazing food. Anyway, so there's two people next to us. We sit down. They're eating these polenta covered in eggplant things with amazing cheese. I don't. Polenta and eggplant and cheese sounds terrible. It was remarkably good, but it looked amazing. And they sort of looked the other way, and I was tempted just to steal one off the plate because they're pretty easy to grab. There's these little tiny squares. I didn't, and thankfully I didn't, because as this guy gets up to leave, he turns to me and he says, "I love your show," and I'm like, I think you have the wrong guy. I don't know what you're talking about. No paparazzi. This isn't. I'm not on the clock. Very nice guy though, and he said his son actually is one of the chefs at the sister restaurant, which just opened up in the same strip mall there. So that's a good connection to have. But he actually seems to like the show. He did not say to me, however, that I'm too negative, or he seemed very nice. I think in his mind he's like, this guy's, way too negative. He's probably going to give this restaurant a terrible review on Yelp. No, that restaurant was excellent. If they served Matt Lee on a plate, I would say it was good, not great. Like Matt Lee is good.
This is a crazy looking menu. What did you eat at this place?
Oh, that's what I'm saying. I don't even know. I don't even know what I ate. I told my wife and my wife's friend, I said, you two just order like whatever and I'll just eat it.
I hope you didn't have to pick up the tab. I'll tell you that.
I mean,
white truffle tagliatelle.
That was only $99. That one.
Only $95. Are you kidding?
Yeah, that was a cheap
That's
one.
Pasta.
What?
That's a pasta dish.
Yeah, correct.
$95. Crazy.
I did not order that. Okay.
Oh my God.
I got an order of the bread and I drank the water bowl and I left.
Good. All right. Let's get back to topic here.
You don't even listen to me.
I do listen to you.
I don't.
I would check out the restaurant, but it's the menu's crazy. But that's not what we're here to talk about. We're not doing restaurant reviews of.
I think people would rather hear my restaurant reviews than what I think about some of these players. But okay, could carry on.
You do go to very.
And by the way,
go to very nice restaurant.
I had a crazy day yesterday because we went to the King Mango Strut Parade, and that was off the chain, man. Like that was the most fun. I went with my family. One of my sons is still here. We all went together and hung out there for hours. It was awesome. Have you ever been to that?
No.
Oh my Lord. It was amazing. There was, I thought there'd be like a Mario Cristobal float, but there wasn't. They do the Ron DeSantis, the Donald Trump. They have like everything, the white boxes popping up in Coconut Grove. They have all this stuff that they make fun of. They didn't have CaneSport. There was no CaneSport float. There was no burning Matt Shodell in effigy for saying negative things. I mean, it was quite fun.
Well, you're loving life almost as much as Matt Lee,
yeah.
Who, from what my sources tell me, was partying hard yesterday afternoon after he returned from his Miami trip to Orlando.
Tell everyone who your sources are. I know who your source is. Tell them who your source is.
No, not yet. The source has got to come
okay.
through.
The source will be revealed in due time.
The source has got to deliver the goods first.
Okay.
But no, I mean, he's got a lot of reasons to be happy. Miami prioritized him. I think he had some nice conversations somewhere along the way with John Ruiz and Life Wallet, and it's all coming together for Matt Lee. He's very excited to be a Miami Hurricane, and we're very happy for him as well. At least Matt and I agree, we think he is going to make the Miami offensive line better. All right. Now we get to rant a little bit because this topic is just totally insane. And that is Daryl Jackson. And you remember he left a few weeks back, was going to go to FSU. His mom, was having health issues, needed to be closer to home. Florida State's like 35 minutes from his house. And he was going to go be a Florida State Seminole. And it went so far into it that they produced this. All right, man. So Florida State is Miami's biggest rival. Your starting defensive tackle leaves totally unexpectedly to go to Florida State. He's making movies in a Florida State uniform. He's calling himself part of the tribe. Now, I think everybody should be happy that Daryl Jackson has now returned to Coral Gables. But, Matt, I think there's a little bit more to unwrap here, okay? Let's start with the season that Daryl Jackson had last year. And I'm going to preface all this conversation because I am going to be a little harsh here by saying I think Daryl Jackson has enormous potential, okay? I felt that way when he came here from Maryland. This was a guy that could develop into a really good college football player. But after a calendar year of which, and Matt's going to elaborate on this in a minute, we saw very uneven performances on the football field. He was not the impact player that he was expected to be, only because Miami is in such a bad place at defensive tackle. Is he being asked back, quite frankly, because usually when guys leave and go to your arch rival, you're not, sitting there with open arms. Miami needs him. There's nobody that they could get in the transfer portal that is going to replace what Daryl Jackson potentially is. So now he is back. He's being let back into the program. We're going to assume he stays. He is in South Florida. And as long as he stays and re-enrolls in Miami, everything continues business as usual. But Matt, I'm going to throw out the gauntlet here a little bit. And I'm going to say, Daryl Jackson, you need to prove to yourself, to your teammates, to the fans, and to CaneSport that you are all in, okay? You need to work harder than you worked last year. You need to perform better. You need to perform more consistently. You need to become the player that you have the physical capability to be. Okay. And when you do that, I think everybody will be able to put this whole thing to the side and pretend it didn't even happen, which is essentially what we're doing anyway. But Matt, this go around, I want to see a better Daryl Jackson. Your thoughts?
Well, what is he number? He's uniform number 6. So I'm calling this wide right 6. That's how I phrase it, because this is Miami versus Florida State, man. Anything could happen. He could come to Miami and go back to Florida State in the spring in the portal. Anytime you have a family reason to go somewhere, you can go wherever, man. Like I was literally looking at FSU-based stories about Daryl Jackson, and they all said Daryl Jackson signs with Florida State. Signs with Florida State. He signed with Florida State. It's official. He signed with Florida State. Those are their headlines.
They enroll.
Right.
And no one's enrolling in Florida State till this week.
Correct. This is what the idiocy of college football has become. A player announces he's leaving a program to transfer for the second time in 2 years, and he's only been a sophomore, by the way, okay? Enrolled at Maryland as a freshman, transferred to Miami as a sophomore, announced he's going to Florida State before his junior year, after his sophomore year, decides he's coming back to Miami. I mean, where else does this happen other than a fiction novel written by a really bad author named Mike Norvell? I don't know, but this to me is the epitome of, I hope Daryl Jackson announces 3 more transfer destinations and then returns back to Miami just to show the NCAA what idiocy this is. I mean, this system they have in place it's nonsense. And I'm not gonna go crazy like Gary does. He's got to be better. He's got to do this. He's got to do that.
He does, Matt. This is
out of Maryland. Everyone was like, he came out of Maryland. He looks like this physical freak, which he does. But at Maryland, he had like 26 tackles, started 1 game, had maybe a tackle for a loss. And he gets here and everyone's like, oh, he's going to be unbelievable. I didn't think he was going to be unbelievable in his second year as a not lightly recruited, but not a top recruit out of high school who played 1 year as a backup at Maryland. I'm not going to anoint him the next great.
Okay, but would you agree with me that this is a joke? Like, this is ridiculous.
This is a joke. I already said that. Yeah. But my point is on the field, to your point, on the field, this should be the year where he makes the jump up. Yes, because it's his 3rd year. Everyone you talk to who knows college football says the 3rd year, it's great to make a big jump between the 1st and 2nd year. But really, your 3rd year is when you get the chance to start. And that's really when you should start making huge strides on the field. And he certainly has every physical tool to do that. There's no reason he shouldn't. The last 5 games last year, he was subpar. Miami coaches will tell you that. He'll tell you that. His PFF grades will tell you that. I don't know if it's because he was distracted. I don't know when his mom got sick or whatever. But
he wasn't all in.
He wasn't the same player the last 5 games last season.
He wasn't all in.
But neither was Leonard Taylor. Leonard Taylor was getting recognition nationally. He was on ESPN for how amazing he was. And then he disappeared. He had 2 good games. And he disappeared.
They're not all in, these guys.
Let me tell you something. I'm sure we'll talk about this later. But I took a look back at the last, the 2017 through 2021 recruiting classes, okay? And this is an epitome. This is why, I was on board with everybody who's like, it's a combination of Mario Cristobal's fault, winning 5 games. Mario Cristobal's fault, bad roster. Mario didn't recognize how bad the roster was, et cetera, et cetera. He tried to fix it with the portal, which I said was a bad idea, and I still think it was a bad idea. But these are numbers. These are true facts for what Mario Cristobal was facing when he got here, okay? And no, there weren't 2017 recruits left over for him, but that class had a bearing on the next class, Like every class, they say stack classes. When you don't stack classes, every class matters, okay? Because you're filling holes from the prior class. If you don't have a player from 2017 who was there for 2 years as a starter, then you're playing younger guys earlier that aren't ready to play. You're losing games. The guys who are sitting behind them that are now freshmen are looking at a redshirt freshman or sophomore starting that shouldn't be starting. They're saying, why is that guy ahead of me? I'm transferring out. You need continuity. You need to have players that step up and start for multiple years in a program. We're going to have a whole series on that. But here's the numbers I want to tell you, okay? 11 players transferred out of the 2017 class. 17 players transferred out of the 2018 class. 17, and they only had 25 that came in, including portal guys. 17 transfers when 25 players came in that class, including transfers. That's got to be a record. 2020 class, 10 players left. 21 class, the 2021 class already has had 5 players transfer. All right? This is not how you build a roster. This is what Mario Cristobal inherited before he got here. This is what has to stop if they're going to be a championship team. So for everyone out there who wants to say that it's Mario's fault, it's the coaching staff's fault, it's Josh Gaddis's fault, yeah, of course, part of this is Josh Gaddis's fault. Of course, part of it's Mario's fault. But in the back of your mind, keep those numbers in mind and feel a little bad for these guys, a little bad, because it's like, I'm trying to think of an example. It's like if you go to Bois d'Oeil and every good dish they don't know the name of is sold out, and all that's left is some Kentucky Fried Chicken that they had in the back, you're not going to be too happy, and you're going to try to do what you can with a Kentucky Fried Chicken. But at the end of the day, all you got is Kentucky Fried Chicken. You don't have foie gras. You don't have truffle mac. You don't have potato. I actually had these. They have,
and they'll want to charge you $75 for the fried chicken. By the way,
they had potato skins with
I saw those
with oh my god, why is it escaping my mind? With
caviar and hard eggs.
Potato skins with caviar. I had those.
$33 potato skins.
I had those potato skins.
And only go to Fridays to get potato skins for $7.
How many potato skins with caviar do you think comes in an order for $30?
2.
Yeah, that's right. Two.
Yeah, it's a joke.
Yeah, and I ate both of them before my wife could even touch it, so it worked out great for me. No, she had one. But anyway, the point is they inherited something that nobody should have to inherit. And I feel bad for them. Did they mess up? Yeah, they messed up. Should they have won more than 5 games? Yeah, they should have won more than 5 games. Did they not understand how bad their roster was? Well, if they had done the research that just took me 3 hours to do yesterday, they probably would have said, maybe things are really even worse than we think. I don't know what kind of film they watched of the guys they had coming back. I don't know what they thought these portal guys were going to accomplish, named Antonio Moultrie and Jacob Lichtenstein and John Dennis. They should have known certainly wasn't going to help out. And they certainly should have known Logan Sagapola was a backup at best, whatever.
So
But they were desperate. They were desperate when probably they should have been. But at the same time, if you're desperate, just say build for the future. Like, let's not take these transfer guys that aren't going to help win a national championship. Is Matt Lee going to help win a national championship? I don't think so. But he's good enough to help right now. He's better than what they have. So the coaches have to make a choice. Do we take a guy who's better than what we got, who's not a national championship level center? Or do we wait and just maybe win 6 games next year, grab another center, in recruiting, let them battle it out, something like that. I don't know I'm not the expert. I'm just saying these are the choices these coaches face. And, I always side on the side of taking 4 stars and 5 stars in recruiting because that's the coach's forte. Their forte is not taking transfer portal guys from UCF and what are some of the other schools they got them from? South Dakota State. I don't know, wherever these guys are coming from. To me, that's not the strength of Mario Cristobal. Alabama's that's a free agent. I said transfer portal. And I think by the way, Matt Lee's a transfer portal guy to me. He's not a free agent. Okay. I know they paid him whatever to get him here. To me, he's a transfer portal guy. High-end transfer portal guy, but not a free agent. But anyway, I've talked too much. I can't even remember what I was saying.
All right. I have a question. I do have a question. Let's say instead of working for CaneSport, you worked for Mario Cristobal's agent's office. And I forget his name. It's escaping me right now. My brain, like I said, is not working real well from fighting this damn ridiculous cold. But let's say they had you on staff and all this research that you're doing, which we will roll out on CaneSport here in the near future. You were able to give that to Mario. This is what the situation is in Miami. Does Mario still take the job?
Well, I probably shouldn't say this, but I actually was Mario Cristobal's agent, and I told him the truth, and he fired me immediately. So, no. If I had told Mario the situation at Miami, if he didn't come to Miami because he thought the team was better than what he had in Oregon. He was building a monster at Oregon for that conference.
I agree.
And he had all the money he could want there. His family was happy there. He came home. His mom was sick. He has longtime friends here. His dream's always been to coach the Miami Hurricanes, Gary. I mean, look, my dream was to eat at Bois d'At and order the potato skins with caviar. Would I not go when I had the chance to go? I'm going to go. That's what you do. You grow up dreaming of something. It's your goal in life to do this. And then you get the chance to do it. Are you going to say no? I mean, are you going to let your family, your family obviously weighs in a lot, but are you going to let your family talk you out of it? Are you going to let Matt Shodell talk you out of it? No. You go there, you did what you did you do what you did at FIU. You did what you did at Oregon. You build it up. You try to get it back. And I know there's been a lot of coaches that have not been able to do it. Mario knows that. Mario doesn't think that all these past coaches didn't know what to do. Mark Richt was as experienced a coach as you're going to find. Okay. He was a really good recruiter to me. I thought he was a great personality. Recruits trusted him. Families trusted him. There was no, including Mario, I don't think there's any coach in the country that any parent ever trusted more than Mark Richt. Because when Mark Richt promised a family something, he was promising that in the Bible. And he was not going to let that go. Like, you know Mark Richt. Like, whatever he promises you and swears he's going to do, he will do it. There's no other college coach in America that does that. College coaches, let's face it, are pretty much used car salesmen. Some of them maybe are selling some Teslas. That's got its own bag of worms with it. But at the end of the day, like, that's what they do. They're trying to convince you of something that they're not even sure of themselves. Like, oh yeah, this car will go 300,000 miles, top speed, 482 miles an hour. It'll never break. It doesn't even need oil changes. That's what these college coaches do. They go into a recruit's home. who's an 18-year-old, and they say, if you work hard, you have a chance to start. If you work hard, we'll get you to the NFL. We'll coach you to the NFL. If you work hard, you'll have NIL deals, whatever you're not allowed to say. I mean, they will promise a recruit whatever it takes to get them to that school. It's how it's always been. It's how it always will be. So that's what Mario has built himself on. He's the best used car salesman on the used car sales lot, and that's okay because that's the business that he's in.
Yeah, I don't think he's a used car salesman. I think Mario's way too genuine to be a used car salesman.
That's the best used car salesman. What are you talking? Have you bought a used car? The best used car salesman.
No, I think he
seem like used car salesman.
No.
Oh my Lord!
I think he believes that he is bringing these recruits into what is going to be the best program in college football in a few years, and I don't think he feels like he's selling them a bill of goods. Like I think that is what he thinks Miami is going to become. So I would not call him a used car salesman. I think that's disrespectful as hell. And I think he's going to body slam you the next time he sees you, which won't be before August because they don't make him available to the media hardly ever. So, they don't believe in media interviews at the University of Miami very, very often.
You know what's disrespectful as hell, Gary Ferman?
What's that?
Disrespectful as hell is basically going 5-7 when your fans expect you to win 10 games. That's disrespectful. What I'm saying is Mario Cristobal is in the same profession as every other college coach. That's not disrespectful. What I'm saying is every single college coach is essentially a salesman. It's the truth. Whether you want to call him a used car salesman or a new car salesman or a Boeing salesman or I can
live with new car salesman.
I mean,
I can live with Boeing salesman.
I mean, in Gary Ferman
terms, going to soar like a 747.
Gary Ferman terms, sex toy salesman. Like, I don't care what kind of salesman you want to call them, Gary, but they are salesmen. It's the truth. I don't care if you think it's disrespectful. It's what they do. They sell a bill of goods to a recruit to convince them, to convince their family that they have your best interest at heart, not Mario, every coach, and that they will get you to the NFL. They will get you millions. If you come to our program, we will coach you up better than anyone else in the country, and you will be a star. If you don't think that's what they're telling every single recruit, you're out of your damn mind. And if you don't think that's not salesmanship, then I don't even know what to tell you. It's not disrespectful. It's the truth.
What if you intend to honor everything you're saying?
These coaches believe it. You coaches believe what they're saying. You convince yourself of things. You've never seen a person, Gary, who to you and me, it seems like what they're saying is insane and makes no sense. Have you watched Rudy Giuliani? Beautiful. Do you think Rudy Giuliani doesn't believe what he's saying? He believes what he's saying. These people believe what they're selling you. They believe what they're selling because they have to.
They're making a 6-part series.
I'm going to lie to everybody. Nobody thinks like that. They convince themselves that it's probably true, so I'll believe it. And you're a better car salesman when you do believe it.
You know where all that BS got, Rudy? That's like a 6-part series on CNN.
I know. How about that?
Insane. But anyway, listen, if you're saying, hey, I'm a Boeing salesman and we are building the most beautiful 747 that's going to go soaring off into the sky and you are going to be riding it. Like, I don't consider that a used airplane salesman, okay? You're selling a vision. You're selling a vision. You're intending on delivering on what you're selling. So I think you're being a little harsh. I think you will get body slammed by Mario if he ever lays eyes on you again, which, like I said, is not going to be anytime soon. So it might be long forgotten by then. But anyway, so look, as this all pertains to
you do understand I was talking about every college coach, right? I didn't single out Mario. I'm saying every single college coach, this is what they do.
Okay.
Yeah. I think Mario would actually agree with me.
While he's putting your face into a plate of whatever, that $95 tagliatelle at Boy Day or whatever the heck that restaurant's called, you try to explain that to him, okay? Now, but listen.
I've been yelled at by Mario enough times. I'm not worried about it. I can run faster than he can because I've had to do that several times. I'm not worried about it.
Well, I on the
show, on my 40.
I have not made Mario angry at me this morning. I hope I have made Daryl Jackson angry at me. Daryl, you can't do all of what you have done and not come back a different man in 2023. Focus, hard work, determination, buy-in. You must, if you're going to be a Cane twice in 1 year, you got to be a Cane. You have to be all in. We do not want to worry about where you're going to transfer next year. All in, work your butt off, become a great defensive tackle, like I believe you have the capability of being, and see where that ends up taking you 2 years from now. All right, that's what we got to say. That's what I got to say about Daryl Jackson. All right. We got a couple more topics that we need to cover today. But first, let's hear from our friends at Life Wallet.
Growing up in Australia was unreal. I grew up in a small fishing town where I kind of had the freedom to go running around, go fishing and all that stuff. From there, I moved to the city where I didn't really have as much freedom to run around, so I got really heavily involved into sports, and that kind of progressed on towards playing at a semi-professional level here in Australia, and then moving forward to playing college level football in America currently. I think maybe my biggest inspiration is kind of looking back at the life I had, just working construction for 8 years, and sometimes I sit back and kind of have to realise how far I've come since putting on the high vis and throwing a hammer around, looking back and seeing how far I've come from then. Going to uni, getting a degree, onto my masters, playing football at an elite level. I think just going back and seeing how far I've come, it made me realise that I can keep going, play at a professional level because I've already come this far. Looking back and seeing how proud everyone is here, back in my hometown, and just that keeps motivating me.
Nice commercial. I'm looking forward to the Mike Lee Life Wallet commercial, or Matt Lee. I'm sorry. That's why I said Mike. I'm telling you, my brain is not working. Anyway, so tonight's the national championship game, and we get to see Georgia and TCU go at it for the national title. Matt, it's about 20 years since the Miami-Ohio State game, and I've gotten a lot of phone calls this past week, people wanting me to talk to me about what I remember from that night. And so a lot of people are remembering that game and the night that Miami got its back-to-back national title stolen from it. So it inspired this great idea to have Jim Martz, our resident historian, write a nice column looking back on that 2002 national title game. And so we've got that on the website today. I encourage everybody to check it out. And Matt, what do you remember from that night?
Nothing good, man. I actually am not sure fans really want to read about it, so I'm not really going to talk about it that much. I mean, it's not one of the memories you really are like, oh yeah, I remember where I was when this or that happened. I mean, it wasn't great. The only memento I did keep from it, like I said on some other show, is the story I will tell, because I don't want to talk about the game. After the team came back, for some reason, I don't know if there was an availability. I don't think there was. I think I was interviewing a player, and in those days, you sort of went into it was just a different building. They totally redone the whole thing, but there was a building you'd go into, and sort of that's where the sports information director was, and that's where they take the players in to do their interviews. And I ran into Maurice Sykes in there, and Maurice had just a garbage bag full of stuff from the Fiesta Bowl. And I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm throwing out all my stuff that they gave me at the Fiesta Bowl, because they give all the players all these different things. And one of the things he had was it was here, I'll show you. Let's see if I can get it up there. Can you see where it says Maurice Sykes up there on the wall? I can't get it much closer. See my hat? This is on 3.
Yeah.
Right above it, it says Maurice Sykes, and it's got the Tostitos Fiesta Bowl and the Hurricanes helmet. So that was in Maurice Sykes' garbage bag. And I said, Maurice, you're going to want that stuff back. You're going to regret throwing all this stuff out. I know it hurts right now to look at it, but 30 years from now, you made the national title game. He's like, no, man. I said, listen. I said, give me one thing out of the bag. I'll keep it for you. If you ever want it back, I'll give it back to you. So he handed me that, which was the placard he had for the press conference before the game, which I don't know why he kept that or was given that, but that's what I now have on my wall. And I'm still holding it from Maurice Sykes. And on his birthday last year, I sent him a message. I said, hey, I still got this, if you want it. And he's like, nah, I'm good. So I'm still holding it, Maurice. If you want it back, I still am holding it for you.
Well, my greatest memory from that night, and then we'll move on, was at the end of the game, or what was seemingly the end of the game. I'm watching that play and on the sidelines with Warren Sapp, and we're standing there, and there were a whole lot of people obviously down there, a lot of big names in Miami football history. And the ball drops to the ground, and the fireworks go off over the stadium, and Larry Coker's up on the shoulder, and we're all high-fiving and celebrating this national title. And then it somehow all came to an end, and just unbelievable. It's the kind of thing you'll never see again. Like, there's certain things that you only see once in your lifetime. I got to believe I'm never going to see anything quite like that again. And, man, the Miami football program has not been the same, Matt, since that second in time. And, you could debate whether that had anything to do with it. I think it had a lot to do with it. I think it kind of took the air out of the balloon. I think the coaching staff started splintering and falling apart after that experience, and things just kind of went south from there. And no, it has not been the same. Can Mario get it back to that level? We'll see. I mean, he's certainly trying, but it has been an uphill climb ever since that moment when that flag hit the ground.
Listen, the reason why Miami never made it back is I've come to the realization that it's a fairly simple answer. Miami started recruiting off lists. If you remember, that's around the same time when recruiting networks began to exist. And coaches tend to be overworked. And in Miami's cases, they were overworked and underpaid, which is a bad combination because human nature is you're not happy, right? You see everyone else in the country getting paid more than you. You're working twice as hard as them because that's what you have to do at Miami. You're not happy. And I know for a fact they started recruiting off lists because I would go in the coaches' offices in those days and I would see them recruiting off the list for the network I worked for, okay? And they would sometimes ask me questions about these guys. And they would offer 4- and 5-star guys off the list. Prior to that, there was no recruiting services. I mean, recruiting services honestly had as big a reason for the downfall as anything else. And I don't care that we're still a recruiting service because prior to that, Miami had this formula where they literally had it down, where they would literally talk, and they'll tell you, to the janitors in the school. They would talk to the guidance counselors, family members, friends. They would find out everything you needed to know, not just about a player's talent on the field, which everybody else knows, but they would find out what the player's character is like, how he treats other people when everyone's not looking at him. And that's so important because as the culture of the team just disintegrated. You saw it in the Peach Bowl a few years later. The character of the team was gone. This was not a team that knew how to fight for each other anymore. All they knew how to do was fight with each other and against other teams, pretty much. It fell apart, but it didn't fall apart because of that loss in the Fiesta Bowl. It fell apart because coaches stopped recruiting the way they were supposed to. They didn't put in the work they were supposed to. They got the wrong guys on the team. That will kill any program, whether you won a national championship in 2002 or not.
I totally agree. That's why I'm so being so hard on Daryl Jackson. That's why I'm being so hard on Cormani McClain. I mean, are you the right guy? Are you all in with the Miami Hurricanes football program to where you, Cormani, you, Daryl, are going to make a difference in getting this program back to where it needs to be? You can't have one foot out the door and be that guy. It's not possible. It's not reality. And that's my concern with a couple of these guys. And this football team needs to be all in or they don't have a chance. We'll be looking at another 5-win season 11 months from now if they're not.
What? Gary Ferman says another 5-win season if the team's not working hard enough?
Yeah, if they're not more all in than they were last year, 100%, man.
You're so optimistic. 5 wins? Where
if they pull the same crap they did last year, absolutely, man. Did that team look like it was ready to play when it showed up against Middle Tennessee, when it showed up against Duke and all these teams? They were ready to play.
So they've added 23 freshmen. They've added 6 transfer portal guys, and you expect a magic transformation in 1 year. That's right. As long as they work hard, they'll win 10 games.
Not if they're not all in. I don't.
They're going to win 8 games. Would be a nice season, to me, based on what they have come back. I mean, let's be real about it. I think they're 2 years away from being really good and 3 to 4 years away from being amazing. You got to stack 3 recruiting classes on top of each other that are all top 5 classes. Coach them up, hard work. And that's it. Like, I don't know why Gary and everyone's focused on next year. Like, enjoy next year when you get wins. A win is great. A win next year is great. But
you can't just win 5 games again and say, oh, geez, it's just part of the process. No. If you're going to be on this roster, you have to be all in, okay? You have to show up for games ready to play. You have to work hard during the offseason. You have to not have one foot out the door to go to Florida State. Okay,
First of all, when
you're starting defensive tackle.
Let's be real. Every player has their foot out the door if some other program offers them enough money. That's just the way it is. It's nice to say that everyone's all in with the Miami Hurricanes, but the truth is they should be all in to be the best player they can be. Like, let's face it, there's no more. It's like the NFL, right? You're not going to say, oh, Pat Mahomes is a Kansas City Chief for life. If he gets a better deal somewhere else, I'm not so sure he's going to stay in Kansas City. You know, it's great that Miami fans are passionate about their team. That's what matters. It's about the family of the Miami Hurricanes fans and about them supporting whoever happens to be on the team that particular year, because let's face it, there's going to be a lot of churn. There's just going to be a lot of churn. There already has been. It's not necessarily going to get better, but that's okay. Like, we have to adjust to the new normal. And as long as the players on that year's team work as hard as they can, enjoy each other, feel like a family, and help bring in more talent the next year, that's what is most important. You know, like you watched the Deion Sanders documentary, and, you know, we talked about a previous show, but when he made that display of kicking Mark Pope off the team because Mark made a comment or whatever it was, I mean, the fact is Mark Pope's not the hardest worker. We knew that at Miami. But when you do that in front of the rest of the team, you know, all the fans that watched that show, it was a special on Amazon that Deion does, for those of you that don't know. Deion gets up in front of the whole team and says, you know, Mark Pope's gone because the team voted him out because, you know, he was a bad seed, supposedly. He eventually returned. But the point is, when you do that, fans are saying, oh, that's so mean, and they're talking about Mark Pope. What that really says to every other 84 players on that roster is, oh, damn, I better work my ass off. I better be positive. I better not be a cancer on this team. I better have a family vibe about me for everybody, or that's going to be me. Like, that's really why I thought it was a brilliant move by Deion. As wrong as it was to air it on national TV, there's nothing wrong with that if you're a coach. If your team was what we saw at Miami last year, I think if Mario Cristobal had stood up in game 2 of last season or game 3 of last season and pointed to 3 guys who weren't working hard enough and said, you're off the team, you know, like, that's it. Go find another home. I think those other 82 guys would have busted their butts the whole rest of the season, and they would have won more games. Call me crazy. Like, I believe that just because I know we didn't watch practice, but I know the guys who were practicing. I know how they practiced the year before, and I didn't see a hell of a lot of difference in their play last season. Like, I'm sorry.
Can't disagree. All right, so Jim Martz has a column looking back at that national title game and the experience with Ohio State. I hope you guys enjoy that. All right, there's a lot of other stuff on the website. We've been pounding it all through the weekend, but we won't be able to cover it all on the show. Just make sure, you know, you go on the website and see everything that's been going on the last few days. But, Matt, there was one other thing I wanted to give you a chance to talk about a little bit, and that is our CaneSport on 3 7-part hit or miss series that we are introducing today. Why don't you explain to everybody a little bit about what that's all about?
Okay, it's a little confusing because it's a weird concept. On 3, Gary sent me this story like a month ago. On 3 did this analysis, which they didn't even show us, honestly, the underlying data, but they said that their analysis proved that if you have a roster every year where 60% of the signees from the class of whatever year, 5 years before, 6 years before, 3 years before, if 60% of those signees are multi-year starters, chances are very, very good you will be a championship level program. Okay, that's their study that they did, that they said that's the magic number. So Gary told me about it, and I said, let me think about it or whatever. And that was like literally 2 months ago. And it was signing day was coming up. It's been crazy. But finally, I got around to it. And in between eating, caviar crusted potato wedges and whatever else, I got around to it. So we're starting the series, and I've already run some of the numbers, and spoiler alert, you'll have to look at some of the data points that I'll come up with later, but spoiler alert, I'll just give you real quick, okay? They want to be at 60%. That's the number. That's the number to be a championship team. Think about it this way. If the class Mario just signed, right, all these 5 stars, 4 stars rated number 4, think about it. If 60% of those guys, okay, so let's just say it was 20 guys. It was more than 20. But let's say it's 20 guys, right? That means 12 guys, if my math's right, I'm not checking it, but around 12 guys will be multi-year starters, which means they were developed good enough to start not just 1 year, but 2 years or more, right? B, it means when they're starting those 1 or 2 years, guys behind them are learning by watching what they're doing correctly, how they're working, how they're playing, learning behind them. They're the next guys up after that, and then they're going to start a couple of years, and then the guy learns behind them. So it's a cycle. Whereas Miami's in this cycle for 20 years now. A guy will start a few games. He's not good enough. Put someone else in. He's not good enough. They transfer out. Start a freshman here. Start a redshirt freshman there. Bring in a transfer from some school where he wasn't good enough. That's the cycle we're in right now. Anyway, 60% is the number. 2017 class, the hit rate, which is multi-year starters from that signing class, okay, had to start for 2 years. I don't care if you started 1 game 1 year and 4 games the next year, you're considered a hit if you did that. Gregory Rousseau is a miss in that system. Jalen Phillips is not applicable in this system because he was only here 1 year. But there's also guys who are hits that weren't particularly good. So they sort of balance out. So I sort of get where that 60% comes from, okay? You guys will go through it over the next week. You'll see it all. Anyway, 2017 hit rate, 39.1%. That's not 60%. 2018 was the closest it got. Now, remember, 2018 was the best class that Miami's had in a while, right? Because a lot of the top kids stayed home that class. Was that the James Williams class, right? Cam Kinchins? Am I thinking of the right class?
No. Was it?
I know the 2018 class was good. Hold on, let me look at it real quick.
They would have been 19, I believe.
Okay, hold on. I just remember the 2018 class being really good, which is really the only class that's holding Miami together, that's sort of held Miami together, I think. 2018 class was, right. Brevin Jordan, right. No, it wasn't that. That was the Brevin Jordan, DJ Scaife, Al Blades, Gil Frierson, Cam Harris, Will Mallory, DJ Ivey. So Gregory Rousseau, John Campbell, Jordan Miller. So it's a lot of guys. Right, my mistake. So it's a lot of guys. I guess I caught Gary's brain disease, but it's a lot of guys who did start multi-years but weren't great. They weren't great players, but at least they did start multi-years. 47.8%, still not 60% even with that. 2019 was 40%. 2020, that was the good year, right? Where they got all those guys for COVID. That's what it was. 2020 was 2020 is 27.3%, but remember it's more recent. There still might be some guys that will start multi-years from that class. And then 2021 is 22.7%. Now that's interesting because I did look at that a little closer. That 2021 class, 5 guys, like I said, already transferred out, right? And when you look at the other guys in that class, you realize like they're not really going to make it. You guys can look at that class and try to see, of the guys who haven't really started yet, which ones you think will start, because there's not a lot. That number, in my guess, will not get above another 3 players. So I think it's going to stay below 40%. So they're nowhere near this magic 60% number. I don't know if they, on 3 people, made up this number just to write a story. I don't know. The links in this morning's story, you can go
give us something to think about and look at, though.
Yeah, you can go look at the on 3 thing. It's just they made up some number,
This is what Matt and I do now every day. We look at all these different things and we dream up stories that we can do for you guys.
I mean, their story literally says, based on an on-3 analysis, 60% is the number that you have to have retention in every class to be a championship level team. Like, no explanation. Like, we looked at Alabama, Ohio State. Like, nothing except just some number. But we're like, okay, we'll go with that.
Hey, it's a barometer.
So we're going with it. We'll see what happens.
All right, so we start that series today. We hope you enjoy it. It's a few months in the making. All right, that's going to do it for today for Good Morning CaneSport. We thank you so much, as always, for starting out your day with us, and hope you enjoy this show. If you do, hit your subscribe button, hit your like button. It helps us with the algorithms at YouTube, grow our audience. If you're not yet a subscriber to CaneSport.com, please come join our happy community of Canes fans, where they are euphoric today over Matt Lee transfer. They are euphoric today over the return of Daryl Jackson to Coral Gables. So come join us at CaneSport.com. We don't think you'll be sorry if you do. So for Matt Shodell, I'm Gary Ferman. Have a great day, everybody, and we will see you again tomorrow.